Tip Top Flight School offers flying lessons at a small municipal airport. The school's owner and manager has been attempting to evaluate performance and control costs using a variance report that compares the planning budget to actual results. And a recent variance report appears below, and you've got that information on the screen. So we've got a column for the planning budget, which was based on 150 lessons. Actual results were 155, and we see the actual results, and we compare the variance. So after several months of using such variance reports, the owner has become frustrated. For example, she is quite confident that instructor wages were very tightly controlled in July, but the report shows an unfavorable variance. Okay, and what we're asked to do on this problem is to prepare a flexible budget performance report, and you see that. I just dropped it right on top of the information. You see that here. Okay, so what do? We look at the planning budget, which was based on 150 units, and we compare it to the flexible budget, which would be based on the actual units, and we had 155 units. Okay, so if we go back and look at that report, and let me sort of just slide this a little bit. Revenues were 150 lessons times whatever that rate is that gets us to 33,000, and we had 155. So if we take 155 and multiply, looking the other way, we just know that 33,900 goes here, 33,000 goes here. But what we want to do is take the 33,000, divide it by 150, and come up with the actual cost per revenue, and it's $220. So if we take 220 and multiply it times 155, we come up with a dollar amount that represents the flexible budget amount. The difference between the 34,100 and the 33,000 is an activity variance of 1,100 favorable. It's favorable because 34,100 of revenues is greater than 33,000. But we actually wound up with 33,900 that you see right there. So we drop that number there, and we see we were unfavorable by $200. We're comparing the 33,900 versus the 34,100, and that difference is 200. And then we go through the same logic for expenses. Instructor wages are $65 per flight, right? And it's $65 for flight. If we take 65 times a planning budget of 150 units, we get 9,750. If I slide down a little bit, and of course I'm going to lose some of this on the screen, we were 9,870. So the total variance is the difference between the 9,870 and the 9,750. But what we've got to do is break that down into a per unit cost, right? And then once we do that, we're able to calculate that we actually had a middle ground, if you will, and we can separate the activity variance from the spending or revenue and spending variances. Okay, well, if we take 9,750 and divide it by 150, the planning amount, we wind up with instructor wages of $65. So $65 times 155 gives us 10,075, and that's how we get the middle ground to compute the variances. Here is the activity variance, which would be 10,075 less 9,750, or we can move over here and compare the 9870, which was given in the problem, the actual results, versus that 10,750. So we're going through the same logic on all the others. The variable cost, we come up with what the cost per unit was, right? And we can easily do that by taking the planning budget, 5,700 divided by 150 units, and then we multiply that $38 variable cost per quantity times the quantity, which is 155 lessons, and we wind up with 10,000. Then we wind up, with 5,890. We compare that to the 5,700. Since 5,890 is more than 5,700, we're unfavorable. 5,890 was exactly the actual result, so there's no variance there. We go through the same logic for fuel and the other variable costs. Now, once we get to mixed cost, we actually have to determine how much of those mixed costs were variable versus fixed. So the ground facilities expense was $1,250 plus a $2 in variable cost element. Alright, now I've moved the screen and I dropped in this box right here. Here, I'll highlight it. You can see it's this one here. They've given us some information so we don't have to calculate this on our own, but they basically indicated which costs were variable, which are the ones that just have a number times the quantity, and which costs were fixed. So someone did some kind of cost analysis and separated, mixed cost, and we know that maintenance are $530 plus $12 Q, and that's how we could calculate that middle ground for maintenance and middle ground for ground facilities. It's $12.50 plus $2 per lesson, which we got here, and of course we do the same thing for the administrative expenses. So once we jot in those numbers, we're able to plug in what it would be for a flexible column, right? These numbers are given to us. These numbers are given to us. We use the formula to jot in a flexible budget, and then we compare the flexible budget to the actual planning budget to determine the activity variance. We also then compare the flexible budget to the actual results to determine what was our revenue or spending variances. And that's essentially how you work this problem, everyone.